Yeah, that game was kind of just the franchise equivalent of eating your vegetables. Which, by the way, if you didn't understand the title, it probably means you didn't watch the game, or at least not with the volume on anyway, but I'll explain. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R for the final road game of the season, where the Kraken do fall 2-1 in regulation, importantly, against the Vegas Golden Knights. Is it fun to lose? No. Is it fun to lose against Vegas? Definitely not. And is it a bit annoying that Vegas clinched the division with this win over the Kraken? Yeah, that's definitely not ideal, but for the Kraken, specifically this season, as we know, is already lost. And what would be ideal is if the Kraken could just fight hard and then lose in regulation, and tonight that turned out to be very important, as the two teams that are around them in those standings for that draft position that were also playing tonight both managed to have comeback losses. As the Sabres, who do have a couple more points than the Kraken, so at least there the Kraken control their own destiny as far as staying ahead of them in the draft order, but they cough up a lead to lose to Columbus. And then the one that could really hurt the Kraken and certainly would have been almost disastrous, at least if you are looking closely at this potential draft order situation, was Boston, who is a point below the Kraken, so they're ahead of them in the draft order situation at the moment. They end up coughing up a lead and losing to Chicago. A game that Kraken fans certainly were hoping that they could win so that they would jump the Kraken if the Kraken were to lose against Vegas, which they did, or at least just pick up 2 more points. But no, Boston finds a way to lose to the second to worst team in the NHL, 5-2, so the Kraken have to keep pace if they want a good shot at one of those top 4 picks. And I know this isn't the most fun thing to be thinking about. We'd much rather just cheer for the team to win every game and not worry about what the implications might be. I mean, obviously it would be nice if the implications were them getting closer or getting a better seed in the playoffs, but we know that's not where things are right now. And with just a couple games left, this really is the most important thing happening right now. We kind of know where all the prospects are at, and yeah, the next couple of games in this one will be important to watch how those things go. But the next couple of games could determine whether the Kraken are picking, at least going into the lottery, picking 4th, or all the way back down to potentially 8th. And that in this draft could make a very big difference as far as what the next big prospect the Kraken get from this draft is. And since this is hopefully the last time the Kraken will be picking anywhere near the top 10, at least for a while anyway, it does make a bit of a difference. So again, was it fun for the Kraken to lose this game? And will it be fun if they lose their last 4 straight to go into the offseason? The answer to both of those is obviously not, but it could be very important for the future of the team. And just like eating your vegetables isn't always fun, though personally I have to say that I do generally really like vegetables, but I think the metaphor still stands. It's not always fun to eat them, but they are important for your future, and for the Kraken, that is kind of where they're at with these games. Of course, a big part of that is still playing well and respectably in these losses, which they certainly did not do against Utah, but in this game it was pretty much the ideal loss. The Kraken fight tooth and nail the entire way and come just inches away from Brandon Montour tying the game in the final seconds to send it to overtime, but they managed to lose in regulation so they can keep pace, at least with Boston and that really unfortunate loss that they end up getting. Oh, and as for the title, that has a lot to do with the general conversation that was happening from the TV broadcast team over the course of this game, where they spent a good chunk of the downtime and even some of the not so downtime during the game talking about whether or not one John Forsland looked like, or maybe I should call him John Bon Forzy, as they've decided he is now known, whether or not he looks like John Bon Jovi, who was in attendance at the game, and apparently they did a look-alike thing on the Jumbotron and had the two of them next to each other, which then, Eddie Olczyk spent a long time focused on that, and then they had a long discussion over a period and a half or so about the qualities of carrots, and really less so whether or not carrots are good for you, and more whether or not they taste good, with, I have to say, I'm taking the side of Olczyk on this one. The carrots are delicious. Now, they may not always be good for you if you cook them in a whole bunch of butter and brown sugar, but they do taste a lot better. Meanwhile, both JT Brown and John Forsland don't like vegetables at all, which really makes you wonder how, I guess, some professional athletes can just pull it off eating not the best food and still being very athletic. I mean, just look at the career that Phil Kessel had, and he pretty much only eats hot dogs. So, yeah, there's just some anomalies out there. Either way, it was at least entertaining to listen to. I mean, in a game where it wasn't always the fastest paced or highest event game, though certainly more so than the game against the Kings, I don't know, it was kind of fun to have a little bit of a distraction from, again, a game where you're trying not to cheer against the Kraken, but you know that it's for the best if they don't necessarily come out successful in trying to win the game. Still, as far as the game itself is concerned, as we get into it with not many changes in the Kraken lineup, if any, Ryan Winterton still in it, which I think I said that Winterton went back down to the AHL to join the Firebirds for their playoff push, and he will do that here after, I guess, really at any time, whenever the Kraken decide to send him back down. But he's spending a couple more games up here, playing mostly with the fourth line, so it's not like the Kraken really seem to be looking at him for a top of the lineup type role like they had with Yanni Newman before sending him back down. And that fourth line actually had a pretty decent game. Overall, I would say they were the second best line for the Kraken in this game. As for the first, I think the eye test would kind of tell you that the Beniers line was the best. They spent a lot of time, certainly more time than any other Kraken line in the offensive end. They just had a hard time converting that offensive zone time into actual chances on Vegas's net. But it seemed like whenever, especially in the first period, the Kraken were in the offensive end, it was that line that was making it happen and contributing in some way. The Kraken really do play a very strong first period, I would say, not dominant by any stretch of the imagination, but even though the shot total favors the Golden Knights coming out of it, I think the Kraken really had played the better period, other than the one big mistake they make midway through, which against the flow of play does end up in their net. And this one is on the fourth line, specifically Mikey Asiamont, as Vegas on a rush gets into the offensive end. A puck thrown kind of along the goal line towards the front of the net is directed out well by Adam Larsson. The Kraken with better net front presence and are able to keep the crease clean. But Larsson, not seeing that Barbashev had shoved his way around Asiamont at the last second, that puck that he throws out into what should otherwise be just harmless ice goes right onto the tape of Barbashev, and he puts it right back into the net past Larsson, and with nothing Decord can do to make it 1-0 Vegas. Again, though, to Seattle's credit, they don't allow Vegas to harness any momentum out of that lead-taking goal, and if anything, Seattle has a bit of momentum as they start to tilt the ice ever so slightly back towards Vegas's end. Again, having some trouble actually getting pucks to the net, but they are getting good amount of time with possession of the puck and getting it into the offensive end, even getting set up on a few occasions. It was just the finish that was the issue, and I don't mean the two Finnish players on either of Beniers' wing. They were playing fantastic, and Tolvanen had one really good look towards, I think it was the end of the first period, but more just the finish on the plays, getting the puck into and around the net was more where the Kraken were having their struggles and kind of have all season. Getting some traffic in front of the net certainly would have helped, but they didn't really do a whole lot of that in this one. And that probably played a big role in how they're only able to come up with one goal on a fair amount of opportunities. But we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here. That goal won't happen for a while still, as we get to the first intermission with Vegas still leading 1-0, outshooting the Kraken. But again, I would say the Kraken played at least slightly the better first period, and as we head into the second, things don't really change much. It's a fairly evenly played game with maybe a slight lean towards the Kraken, until as we get into the middle part of the second, Vegas really starts to, I don't know if wake up is the right term or what, but they definitely start to get some better opportunities that just weren't really there in the first period, aside from the one that they ended up scoring on. And although Decord is able to make one pretty good save on the first two good chances for Vegas in the period, one of them coming right after the puck drops to start the second, the other one as we get a few minutes into it, as the Kraken get the transition going back the other way after Decord makes that good save, but it doesn't take long for Vegas to intercept the puck in the neutral zone, or at least cause a turnover on their side of center ice, turn it back the other way, and it's a rush chance that sees a pass dropped from pretty much the goal line right up to the faceoff dot, and an absolutely perfect shot over the glove shoulder of Decord and into the far top corner of the net to make it 2-0 Vegas. Now, it was a very nice shot, but as Eddie Olczyk was all too happy, well, maybe not happy, but was sure to point out with great emphasis on the broadcast, Decord doesn't necessarily play this one the best either. He has his glove up in position as the shot's coming, and then He must have seen something that keyed him into this was going to be a shot low and maybe over the pad, so he drops his glove down to the pad while the shot goes up to where the glove was and over his shoulder into that far top corner. I don't really know what it was that Decord thought he saw there to convince him to drop his glove, but the puck does go not necessarily right where his glove was, but had he kept it up, he would have had a much better chance of making this save. It doesn't happen though, and Vegas does get the 2-0 lead. And just to be clear, I'm not in any way trying to say that this was all on Decord, the second goal. You still have another Kraken player who's too far behind the play to really get in the way of this shot whatsoever, just trying to desperately reach their stick around to try and get anything in front of the shot and disrupt it in any way. So definitely a rush chance that could have been played much better from the Kraken even after they turned the puck over in the neutral zone. But everyone had their part to play in this one, and it wasn't the best play that Decord has made all season long. Still, it's hard to blame him too much, especially as he had to continue to play pretty well in net otherwise as we get through the rest of the second period to keep the score just 2-0 Vegas, as they got a few more very good chances and certainly built some momentum over the course of the middle 10 or so minutes of this second period. Now, eventually the Kraken do get things to even out for a little bit and then even turn things back towards Vegas' end and get some momentum and a few good chances in the final 3 or 4 minutes of the period. And not long after, we're going to go into the second intermission with the Kraken down 2. Eventually, one of those chances does find its way across the goal line after a couple attempts. It's a shot pass from Larson that Eberle, coming down the far side, is able to get his stick on and direct it towards the net, but doesn't quite get enough of it to get it in. Instead, it goes off of the post and just bounces out into the crease, still behind Aiden Hill, who's way up at the top of his crease trying to take away the angle from a Larson shot. And with him unable to react to push backwards in time, both Eberle and McCann converge on the puck in the crease, and Eberle doesn't get to it clean, kind of falls over it, is able to push it towards the goal line, and eventually as Eberle's kind of sliding into the net, I'm pretty sure it is McCann that finishes off and pushes it across the goal line to give the Kraken their, what would turn out to be, lone goal of the game. To double check real quick that it was McCann. Yes, indeed it was McCann that picks up his 22nd of the season. And we get to the third period with the Kraken down just 1. And as we know, this is a team who not only has been big into these multi-goal comeback wins this season, but also has played pretty well in a third period. So it certainly didn't feel at all out of the realm of possibility that the Kraken would play a fantastic third and end up winning this game. But unfortunately, or fortunately, if you're more interested in the draft part of the implications of this game, the Kraken aren't able to really, it never materializes for them. They don't really have a big third period push. They do even get a couple power plays. The only 2 power plays of the game come for the Kraken in this third period, and neither one of them goes very well. The first one, the Kraken get one all right chance, but Vegas even gets a chance of their own the other way. And then the second one, if we're being perfectly honest, the best 2 chances of that Kraken power play came for Vegas back the other way. The Kraken again had one decent look towards the middle of it, but then Vegas responded with not only a couple shorthanded chances of their own, but what almost looked like a full shift that they spent in the offensive end with the puck for 15 to 20 seconds of the Kraken power play in their possession in the Kraken end. So certainly some far from ideal play from the power play, which has been absolutely horrendous here of late. I think this makes them now 0 for 19, maybe 0 for 20 in their last 19 or 20 attempts. So in one of the biggest cold streaks they've ever had to end a season that has already not been very good for the power play. We'll go over what all the numbers looked like and how that's relative to maybe some other seasons for the Kraken at the end of the season. But this power play is ending on the worst stretch that they've had all season, at least so far anyway. We'll see what the final 2 games hold, but it's been pretty abysmal here of late after a bit of a hot stretch that they had coming right out of the Four Nations. It's been kind of a nightmare here over the last month or so. And then coming out of those power plays, really not much of anything happens until the final minute and a half of the game as the Kraken get Decord pulled into the offensive end. They spend pretty much the whole 6-on-5 time in the offensive end, with just a couple of times the puck ends up out, so they have to regroup and come back in. But Vegas never gets any kind of attempt on the empty net. And right in the final few seconds, the Kraken get a puck to bounce around in the crease, get some hack and whack time. And there is a window there where the puck slides out into some open blue ice with nothing but net in front of it, and Montour has the game, well, at least overtime, on his stick and just kind of whiffs. I don't know if he doesn't see the puck cleanly as it's coming through the chaos that is on the other side of him, or if he, I don't know, tripped or something, or his stick gets caught on a groove in the ice or whatever it is, but just completely whiffs on the loose puck as he's just trying desperately to whack at it to get it to go in. Eventually, when he does get a hold of it, it's too late and it goes out behind the net to safety, and Vegas is able to get the last few seconds killed off to win this one and win the division in regulation, 2-1 over the Kraken. So once again for the Kraken, another much needed loss, and this time they do it in much more respectable fashion and at least make this game entertaining to watch. You're in it till the end. They nearly tie it there in the final few seconds, even keep those entertaining, but are able to still pick up 0 points in the standings, which, as far as the future of the team is concerned, is certainly what is for the best right now. As far as the young players are concerned, I don't think there was really, I mean, even as far as just the team in general, there weren't any particularly standout performances for the Kraken. As we'll get to the 3 stars, I don't even know if we're going to end up having 3 stars in this game, because although the Kraken did fight very well in this game, stayed in it all the way, and generally played a solid team game against a Vegas team that was trying to lock up the division right then and there, which now they have done and will probably rest some players. And actually, as far as that's concerned, although they weren't necessarily resting players intentionally, I think, in this game, they were missing Eichel with a bit of an injury, so it's not like they were at full power, certainly, coming into this game against the Kraken, but still a respectably played game by the Kraken. And at least the Beniers line, I would say, looked the best, at least offensively, for the Kraken. As far as on the whole, the right line actually had the best analytics, played pretty well defensively, and had some good offensive chances of their own. McCann ends up with a lone goal, even with the kind of mixture of Wright and Stevenson's line out there, with Eberle and McCann out at the same time. The Stevenson line just got absolutely caved in this game. As far as analytics are concerned, they had hardly anything to speak of offensively, and well over, or at least significantly over, 1 expected goal against. So definitely not the best game from that line, but still the Kraken keep it within 1. And if they're going to lose, this is kind of the way we'd like to see them do it. And I suppose, although I already mentioned it, we should officially get to the Kraken 3 stars as we close out this, again, final road game of the 4th season of the Kraken. As always, brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. And Patreon kind of agreed with me that it's hard to really think of any standout performances that are deserving of a star in this game. For me, I think we can get to 1 star, that being Joey Daccord. I know we spent a little bit of time talking about how the second goal that goes in, he could have played a little bit better, but otherwise, he was fantastic. He still ends up with a well north of 900 save percentage, and also is able to stop more than his fair share of expected goals against as far as the ones that get past him. Not necessarily an incredible night from Daccord, but a pretty good one, and he certainly gave the team a chance to win. They just didn't score enough back the other way, which has kind of been the story of the season for the Kraken. But as always, I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comment section below. And until next time, as we get into the final 2 games, both at home, of the season, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.